Welcome. I'm Alfred Lambremont Webre, a co-host along with Patty Greer and Laura Eisenhower of NewsEvolution. And today, Sunday, May 19th, 2019, Victoria Day weekend here in Vancouver, Canada. We have a special NewsEvolution video editorial. Breaking news, former Gaia.com TV producer Jay Weidner panics after exposing Gaia TV broadcasting hoax program content, attacks NewsEvolution's Patty Greer and Alfred Lambremont Webre's expose of documented deaths and injuries by bioweapons and directed energy weapons at UFO conferences 2016 to 2018 by this reporter, Alfred Lambremont Webre. And when this is online, you'll be able to watch the NewsEvolution special video editorial on truetube.co. Vancouver, British Columbia, Victoria Day weekend 2019. Former Gaia.com TV producer Jay Weidner, on an alleged video repentance and apology tour for consciously and intentionally producing and approving for broadcast a series of Gaia.com TV programs containing materials that were reportedly self-admittedly hoaxed by Gaia.com TV contractees, Corey Good and David Wilcox, appears to be panicking after exposing such Gaia.com TV federal and state broadcast and subscription regulatory violations. And in a newly released video repentance number 5, attacks NewsEvolution's Patty Greer's and Alfred Lambremont Webre's expose of bioweapons and directed energy weapons death, injuries, and UFO conferences 2016 to 2018. Gaia.com TV producer Jay Weidner's repentance and apology video number 5. This reporter, Alfred Lambremont Webre's summary and evaluation of what is going on in former Gaia TV producers Jay Weidner's repentance and apology video number 5 is as follows. You get it and start it at minute 8. Our subtext summary and evaluation is as follows. Jay Weidner was a producer of a company, Gaia.com TV, that sued Laura Eisenhower's and Alfred Lambremont Webre's co-partner in NewsEvolution, Patty Greer, for $1 million in a frivolous and vexatious lawsuit. This is in 2018. The lawsuit itself was already once dismissed as such by a Colorado court. As a diversion strategy, Gaia.com sued competitor NewsEvolution co-host Patty Greer at the very same time that Gaia.com TV itself was broadcasting for profit and subscriptions a series of programs based on and containing materials knowingly hoaxed by Gaia TV contractees Corey Good and David Wilcox. Such acts constitute a violation of applicable federal, Colorado state, and Boulder municipal laws by multiple parties, including and not limited to Gaia.com TV, its directors and officers, then producer Jay Wilcox, and then Gaia.com TV contractees Corey Good and David Wilcox. Former Gaia TV producer Jay Weidner is now panicking and attacking NewsEvolution co-hosts Patty Greer and Alfred Lambremont Webre in this repentance and apology video number 5, to attempt to preemptively deflect his own possibly criminal racketeering programming fraud at Gaia TV with contractees Corey Goode and David Wilcock, in my humble opinion. Indeed, former Gaia TV producer Jay Weidner almost appears to be, quote, crisis acting in this video in an effort to avoid criminal and civil liability toward the irreparable harm and injury NewsEvolution and its founders and partners, Patty Greer, Laura Eisenhower, and Alfred Lambremont Webre, have suffered as a result of a frivolous and vexatious $1 million lawsuit that former Gaia TV producer Jay Weidner's then employer, Gaia.com TV, brought against its new competitor, NewsEvolution, in 2018, when and after NewsEvolution exposed the hoax programming that former Gaia TV producer is now repenting of in his evidentiary statements on the air in May 2019 with Groovy Bean. In this repentance and apology video number 5, crisis actor and former Gaia TV producer Jay Weidner is still covering up corporate malfeasance by his former employer Gaia TV for broadcasting a series of known hoax programming by contractees Corey Goode and David Wilcock that he, Gaia TV producer Jay Weidner, is responsible for producing. This is why Gaia TV producer Jay Weidner attacks NewsEvolution's Patty Greer and Alfred Lambremont Webre's reporting. In 2018, Gaia TV sued NewsEvolution's Patty Greer for $1 million in a deliberate harassment lawsuit, and a Colorado court has dismissed this lawsuit as frivolous and vexatious once already. In my humble opinion, Gaia.com TV producer Jay Weidner, in his repentance and apology tour video number 5, is, quote, crisis acting. In my humble opinion, Widener here is crisis acting, having overseen as a producer at Gaia.com TV a series of knowingly hoaxed programs with contractees Corey Goode and David Wilcock, intentional acts that constitute corporate fraud and racketeering under terms of service under Colorado law to subscribers, paid subscribers. It appears in the video that then Gaia.com TV producer Jay Weidner's duality consciousness, what they call the reptilian mind, is falsely striking out at our News Inside Out and NewsEvolution reporting of 3 deaths, multiple cases of reported bioweapons and directed energy weapons, DEW symptoms, attacks at major UFO conferences in 2016 to 2018. Some of these conferences were reportedly Gaia.com sponsored in order to facilitate his former employer, Gaia.com TV, avoid potential liability for the irreparable harm and injuries caused to attendees and presenters in 2016 to 18. You can read all of the statistics, which are supported by field notes from actual eyewitnesses at this link. Part 2, Jay Weidner turns state evidence with Groovy Bean about Gaia TV's $1 million vendetta against Patty Greer and NewsEvolution. Vancouver, British Columbia. In a series of 3 quietly released video interviews, Former Gaia TV producer, if in fact he is telling the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, turns state evidence and publicly confesses to journalist Groovy Bean to having aided and abetted corporate criminal fraud and abuse by corporate, quote, UFO and spiritual media giant Gaia.com of its federal and Colorado regulated broadcasting and business permits and Colorado regulated corporate member subscription rules of service over the course of 2016, 2017, 2018, and into 2019. You can listen to former Gaia.com producer Jay Weidner in video number 1, video number 2, video number 3, and above video number 5. Gaia.com, in fact, issues an apology to Patty Greer. She says Patty Greer is innocent of any wrongdoing. At the end of video number 2 interview with Jay Weidner, Mr. Widener, as former Gaia.com producer, issues a functional, unconditional apology to NewsEvolution co-host Patty Greer at minute 127.07. Jay Weidner's functional apology is for wrongful acts committed against Patty Greer by Gaia.com officers, employers, and contractors in the corporate malfeasance and gross negligence at Gaia.com caused by producer Jay Weidner and Gaia.com TV production of multiple episodes of media programs starring Gaia.com contractees Corey Good and David Wilcock that allegedly contain intentionally hoaxed, false, fraudulent, and maliciously misleading content materials broadcast by Gaia.com TV and its directors, officers, and employees for paid subscriptions. Gaia.com's TV's broadcasts of criminally intentionally hoaxed programs are in direct violation of applicable integrity in broadcasting federal and state statutes and regulations. In order to cover Gaia.com's TV intentional hoax media crime, former Gaia.com TV producer Jay Weidner in these 3 states' evidence videos, which provide probable cause for grand jury felony fraud indictment of directors, officers, producers, and contractees of Gaia.com TV, turns state's evidence to Groovy Bean and provides evidentiary testimony as to the rationale why directors, officers, and contractees of Gaia.com made the intentional, criminally motivated decision to attempt to divert public and prosecutorial attention from its producing and broadcasting hoax, UFO, and spiritual broadcasting by Jay Weidner, Corey Good, and David Wilcock by bringing a frivolous and vexatious lawsuit for the unheard sum of $1 million against Crop Circle researcher and NewsEvolution co-host with Laura Eisenhower and Alfred Lambremont Webre in the newly launched weekly program competitor to Gaia.com TV, namely NewsEvolution. On information and belief, Gaia.com TV and its directors, officers, employees, and contractees of Gaia.com attempted to cover up the knowing corporate hoax program crime by Gaia.com TV producer and contractees Corey Good and David Wilcox, and by Gaia.com TV by specifically and intentionally targeting Patty Greer for a frivolous and vexatious lawsuit and for her legal defense expenses to date in excess of $50,000 US. It should be noted that such lawsuit was dismissed vexatious once by the Colorado courts, reintroduced, and as of this writing is in the process of settlement after causing irreparable damage not only to Patty Greer, but to all the co-hosts of NewsEvolution, to NewsEvolution itself, and to the public at large of NewsEvolution. At the time of such frivolous and vexatious lawsuit by Gaia.com TV against its competitor, NewsEvolution, co-host Patty Greer, journalist Patty Greer was documenting, exposing, and reporting on the very same criminal hoax media programming by Gaia.com TV producer Jay Weidner and Gaia.com contractees Corey Good and David Wilcock that now repentant criminal corporate whistleblower Jay Weidner is turning state's evidence on in the above three interviews. A key motive of Gaia.com in its vexatious $1 million lawsuit against Patty Greer, co-host of NewsEvolution. Therefore, the motive of Gaia.com and related directors, officers, employees, and contractees and producers in bringing a frivolous and vexatious lawsuit and allowing such lawsuit to be brought against Patty Greer, against NewsEvolution's co-host Patty Greer, who was exposing the RICO-related criminal racketeering of hoax programming by Gaia.com TV producer Jay Weidner and Gaia.com TV contractees Corey Good and David Wilcock via the medium of NewsEvolution appears by prima facie evidence and logic. Their motive appears to have been, one, to facilitate the economic destruction of Patty Greer as an economic entity through litigation expenses of in excess of $50,000 US, and creativity and career displacement that such litigation, prosecuted ominously by three top corporate media litigators, brought especially from New York to Boulder, Colorado, to represent Gaia.com. And two, to intentionally take out and eliminate a key co-host of NewsEvolution with Patty Greer, Laura Eisenhower, and Alfred Lambremont Webre, a weekly news program that was barely a month old, thereby unlawfully and with criminal and harmful intent, causing NewsEvolution, a competitor of Gaia.com, to collapse as a fresh, new, alternative news show, spiritual exopolitics on the scene because of the vindictive and abusive legal harassment toward one of his co-hosts, Patty Greer, and of his partners and owners, Patty Greer, Laura Eisenhower, NewsEvolution, and TrueTube.co by NewsInsideOut.com, which is the broadcaster, and the collective public at large wanting to seek and know the truth. All of these suffered immediate and irreparable harm. The puzzle pieces come together. This reporter, Alfred Lambremont Webre, in a social media post of May 16, 2019, recalls trying on May 16, 2019, to decipher why Gaia.com sued Patty Greer, our co-host at NewsEvolution, with Patty Greer, Laura Eisenhower, and Alfred Lambremont Webre for $1 million and shut down the show 2 months after it started. NewsEvolution was my last project before Omniversity, and Gaia TV blew it out of the water with a $1 million lawsuit. Quote, I make Luciferians very worried for some reasons. Alfred says, here is my metaphysical theory. Quote, WBAI volunteer co-hosts Mary Houston and Alfred Lambremont Webre do the Harmonic Convergence radio show in October 1987 in the Boulder, Colorado NPR station that was carried on the NPR satellite. We had Jose Arguelles there as our main guest, landing, and even the Washington Post called in to interview us after the show, landing a vibration of divine light broadcasting in Boulder, Colorado. Quote, as a counter in 1968, the dark side recruits Czechoslovakia, and Gaia.com TV producer to try and deflect. I did misspeak once and I said Poland rather than Czechoslovakia. And so, because Magnus Olsson, one of our great researchers on directed energy weapons, lives just outside of Warsaw, and I spoke at one of the conferences that his partner puts on Ascension. And so he makes a big deal out of that and calls me a sloppy journalist because I want to misspeak. As a counter, in 1968, the dark side recruits Czechoslovakian Olympian athlete Jurka Rysavi in Prague and establishes Rysavi in Boulder as CEO of Corporate Express, a blue chip office supply company, as well as CEO of Gaia.com with 38% ownership. Eventually, Gaia board members, this is a social media post, members of Hollywood producers, and eventually a rumored $30 million cash injector from CIA cutout Jeff Bezos at Amazon. That's who put him on the map to infiltrate exopolitics and spiritual media. Long story short, of course, end of quote. Query, are Gaia.com TV and its directors, officers, producers, and employees, and or contractors, at times acting as conscious, covert, or unwitting agents of clandestine COINTELPRO intelligence agencies of federal, state, and local U.S. or other governments? The latest public sharing of privileged evidentiary testimony by Gaia.com TV producer Jay Weidner in the above 3 videos suggests the response may be yes. Please refer to the evidence of corporate COINTELPRO below. Part 3. Sinister force targeting multi-dimensionally interested journalists, filmmakers, and a 2016 U.S. presidential candidate, causing DEW directed energy weapons, causing blindness and paralysis. I lost my vision, my direct vision in my right eye. It caused blindness to me. January 8th, 2018, medically documented reports. This is the report prepared by journalist Alfred Lambremont Webre with the assistance of field reporter, NewsEvolution field reporter Patty Greer, that former Gaia TV producer Jay Weidner attacks. Eastport Lodge, Blaine, Washington, January 8, 2018. Medically documented reports are now publicly emerging of DEW-directed energy weapons attacks upon targeted multidimensionally interested journalists, filmmakers, authors, researchers, and even a federal election commission registered U.S. presidential candidate in the 2016 election, in addition to attendees at ET UFO conferences. These DEW-directed energy weapons attacks may number up to a dozen or more in the US and Canada, have been exclusively directed against a group of highly talented and developed individuals, many of whom publish, speak, write, make films, appear on TV and radio, and attend international conferences exploring the interdimensional extraterrestrial presence on Earth. Some even claim to have been abducted by extraterrestrials or interdimensional intelligence civilizations. Fourth Geneva Convention war crimes. The medical consequences of these DEW-directed energy weapons attacks have been devastating to many of the targeted individuals. I've met with some of them personally and interviewed them for hours at length, making the DEW attacks classifiable as war crimes against civilians under the Fourth Geneva Convention. By the way, I'm a former war crimes judge of the Kuala Lumpur War Crimes Tribunal that found Tony Blair, George W. Bush, Richard B. Cheney, Donald H. Rumsfeld, and their cabinet guilty of war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity for the unlawful war in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Guantanamo, Cuba. I'm also a war crimes judge on the 9/11 War Crimes Tribunal, along with Judge Connie Fogel, one of the leading human rights lawyers in Canada. The Geneva Conventions and their additional protocols are, quote, international treaties that contain the most important rules limiting the barbarity of war. They protect people who do not take part in fighting, civilians, medics, aid workers, and those who can no longer fight, wounded, sick, and shipwrecked troops, prisoners of war. The Geneva Conventions and their additional protocols are at the core of international humanitarian law, the body of international law that regulates the conduct of armed conflict and seeks to limit its effects. They specifically protect people who are not taking part in the hostilities, civilians, health workers, and aid workers, and those who are no longer participating in the hostilities, such as the wounded, sick, and shipwrecked soldiers and prisoners of war. The conventions and their protocols call for measures to be taken to prevent or put an end to all breaches. They contain stringent rules to deal with what are known as grave breaches. Those responsible for grave breaches must be sought, tried, or extradited, whatever nationality they may hold. At least one victim, a 2016 US presidential candidate, speaks publicly of physical evidence witnessed by others, including a telltale colored laser-like flashes that has led him to conclude publicly his eyesight was targeted by a US Army or other organization's DEW-directed energy weapon during 2016 at the height of the US presidential campaign. The targeted 2016 candidate, who before the DEW attack had 20/40 vision, is now in danger of becoming legally blind and has in fact become legally blind. It should be noted that this candidate, like myself, who I became blind lost direct vision in my right eye because of a DEW attack on July 30th, 2016, of the same sort of directed energy weapons that attacked U.S. employees in U.S. embassies in Cuba and China. The three symptoms are brain damage, memory loss, and eye damage. And when you go to the medical model, to allopaths, to ophthalmologists, they don't know anything about DEW. What the DEWs do is that remotely they cause physiological effects to occur so that ophthalmologists and other medical people come, and what they see is a physiological damage. So they say, oh, you had a stroke of the eye, or you have diabetic retinopathy. Of course, that's what allopaths do, because that's the way they see the world. The military intelligence attackers behind these know from the design of these, quote, non-lethal weapons, is that they are invisible. They come in and they remotely create conditions in the body which supposedly are untraceable, and that they're targeted via your DNA. And we in the targeted individual TI community can identify these by profiling the circumstances under which the attack took place, and profiling the performance characteristics of these directed energy weapons technologies. The 2016 US presidential candidate is a whistleblower about the secret CIA quantum access and extraterrestrial liaison programs. His 2016 presidential candidate, which had an objective possibility of being ultimately successful in later elections, was derailed as a result of the 2016 military-grade directed energy weapon attack upon the candidate's eyesight, in my opinion, as a journalist who has observed these since I personally was attacked at the inner ring of the Pentagon in October 1978. The 2016 US presidential candidate also places partial blame on computer blue screen technology and for-profit operation-oriented allopathic ophthalmologists for worsening initial damage on his eyesight wrought by the directed energy weapons attack. Eyewitness and targeted creator statements. Some of the targeted creative individuals who have had their health shattered and careers, businesses severely affected by these military-style DEW directed energy weapons attacks still chose to remain anonymously out of strategic concern of further retaliation by the sinister clandestine forces behind these directed energy weapons attacks. One such directed energy weapon targeted individual states, quote, 8 other people contacted me who were also hit by DEW directed energy weapons with the same systems. So I know this is happening. I am the only one who did not go to the hospital due to my lack of faith in the medical fraud industry today. Tens of thousands of dollars were spent by the 8 DEW targeted individuals with doctors, and they could not find anything allopathically medically wrong with any of these people. The reports of targeting by DEW from attendees at the following UFO ET conferences events in 2016 to 17 were Contact in the Desert, Iseti Ranch in Washington State, 5D event in Los Angeles, and Conscious Life Expo in Los Angeles. Most of the DEW attack victims were unable to walk, just like me. A male volunteer targeted by DEW directed energy weapons at contact in the desert couldn't walk for 2 days after the event in 2017. He spent 4 days in the hospital and tens of thousands of dollars on testing. They couldn't tell him anything at Palm Springs Hospital as the cause. 2 other ladies and a well-known speaker to us all spent times and tons of cash in a hospital due to getting hit at a UFO event last year, end of quote, a DEW targeted individual revealed. DEW attacked blinds journalist. In a DEW targeting case relating to the 2016 US presidential candidate, this refers to my case, a July 30th, 2016 remote DEW directed energy weapons attack left a prominent journalist and author functionally blinding, losing central vision in his right eye. Immediately after the DEW attack, in order to continue functioning in his daily life, the journalist had to enroll in a 6-week course. It was here in the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, designed to teach legally blind people basic living skills, and was issued a white cane to use for public activities such as riding on public transportation. The directed energy weapons attack that blinded the journalist, Moi, who has actively covered extraterrestrial and interdimensional disclosure from several decades, since 1973, occurred as he was exposing key developments in CIA secret quantum access intervention in the 2016 presidential campaign. Indeed, in June of 2016, I had just written the draft of the article that I later published, evidence-based article that the CIA knew as early as 1971 through secret time travel pre-identification that Donald Trump would be a future president in 2016 and had groomed him as such. The journalist whose eyesight was targeted by directed energy weapons said that shortly after the attacks, he was publicly gang-stalked by US CIA shadow government plainclothes agents who taunted him verbally about the directed energy weapons attacks on his eyesight. Yeah, that happens here. Cui bono? Who done it and who benefits? Those targeted by directed energy weapons attacks and observers can agree that these directed energy, DEW directed energy weapons attacks have disrupted the life mission of each targeted individual in deep and destructive ways. These DEW attacks, when seen as deliberate COINTELPRO or social disruption campaigns, may also collectively be an attempt to negatively impact the process of larger human awakening that is happening at this time. That's another word for ascension. In this context, the DEW attacks crippling a selected, targeted, multidimensionally aware individual may be intended to ensure, one, that specific positive presidential policies are eliminated from our collective timeline. For example, that presidential candidate who was blinded had developed 100 proposals that were far ahead of its time around disclosure. of energy, of many things. Two, that certain films about how crop circle technology can greatly accelerate agricultural abundance never reach wide public awareness. During that last Atlantean Reptilian War, we have credible evidence that the area of the Kalahari Desert in southern Africa, using the functional equivalent of crop circle technology, fed 6 billion people through these advanced quantum dimension agricultural techniques. Three, that new cosmological insights about our omniverse are buried for more centuries as a potentially brutal interventionist extraterrestrial occupation by an inorganic, predatory, pathogenic, sentient, artificial intelligence in league with the Draco-Reptilian threatens to begin. The rule of law, the factual, moral, and legal task now becomes that establishing probable cause as to the identity of the proximate, intermediate, and ultimate sinister intelligent forces behind these DEW-directed energy weapons attacks that have been intervening covertly through different avenues to attempt to shut down a leading edge of human observation and knowledge. It's multidimensional scholars, researchers, and reporters. The odds are slim that random individuals would possess the motive, means, and opportunities to target, deploy, and attack at least a dozen leading multidimensional researchers, journalists, authors, and whistleblowers recently. This is published at the time that NewsEvolution was sued for $1 million. Its co-host, Patty Greer, was sued for $1 million. I wonder why. More likely, these war crimes are caused by a network of entities and individuals organized around the deep web internet, informed by a singular, clandestine, military-like, organized intelligent plan rolled out through various modalities to, quote, take out leading targeted minds, eyes, and ears of the multidimensional community using what are termed directed energy weapons, non-lethal weapons. The intervention of a, quote, clandestine, military-like, organized, intelligent plan carried out through various modalities and, quote, take out an echelon of higher frequency human multidimensional disclosure activists is what the probable cause evidence points to. In an analogous field, alternate healthcare, a parallel clandestine organized targeting appears to be happening to alternative healthcare providers. And it's happened to us alternative multidimensional researchers and journalists as well. Factors underlying the prosecution of directed energy weapons perps as well as war criminals. Among the preliminary conclusions of News Inside Out and NewsEvolution's months-long investigation of this pattern of unattributed remote directed energy weapons attacks on multidimensional interested journalists, filmmakers, a presidential candidate, and conference attendees are that a variety of directed energy weapons are used to severely injure the targeted multidimensional interested individuals. The directed energy weapons targeting takes place at different venues and using varied modus operandi. Directed energy weapons targeting at public UFO and ET conferences and is akin to public terrorism designed not to be traceable back to a single source, directed energy weapons victims' eyesight and visual eye-brain connection networks, or other specialist skill body parts, such as skilled hands. Patty Greer was a concert-level harpist, a musician and composer before her targeting, before her hands were targeted. As this is disabling to their future capacity to produce written and research work in their field. State and corporate terror, an international space-based, satellite-based, nation-based, and corporate infrastructure appears to be behind the directed energy weapon strikes designed to intimidate the targeted individuals from taking action to identify or legally report the perpetrators, who often appear to be A, in plain sight of their directed energy weapon targets, B, to be, quote, above the law, even as they carry out their COINTELPRO directed energy weapon attacks. Only directed energy weapon attackers who are part of a clandestine state and or corporate infrastructure can carry out such openly in-your-face directed energy weapon attacks without any fear of prosecution. Open question. Are Gaia TV and CEO Jirka Rysavi, the 1968 Czechoslovakian Olympian champion who parachuted in after Mary Houston and Alfred Lambremont Webre, 1987, harmonic convergence in Boulder, Colorado, to become CEO of Corporate Express and Gaia TV. Is this CEO providing corporate cover for directed energy weapon corporate state terror? One corporation and its corporate CEO fitting perfectly into the above definition of providing cover for, quote, state and corporate terror are Gaia.com and Jirka Rysavi, founder and chairman and CEO of Gaia.com, quote, since its inception in 1988, Boulder, Colorado, the year after this reporter, Alfred Lambremont Webre, produced and hosted the August 16 to 17, 1987 Harmonic Convergence NPR radio program at Boulder, Colorado, NPR National Public Radio Station with guest Jose Arguelles. For those who are not aware of the profound impact of the harmonic convergence, in the August 11th, 1987 edition of the New York Times, in the article, quote, New Era Dawns, or Just a New Day, Jose Arguelles was quoted, quote, the vibratory infrastructure holding the earth together is in a condition of intense fever called resonant dissonance. Influences such as the arms race and insults to the environment could cause the breakup of the earth into smaller bodies, not unlike the asteroid belt. This can be averted by harmonic convergence achieved in a synchronized collective of human beings, through which the possibility of a new heaven and a new earth is fully present. Gaia.com corporate front and spotting agency for the CIA shadow government. Probable cause evidence suggests that Gaia.com, of which Jirka Rysavi is CEO, is acting as a corporate front and spotting agency for a malevolent corporate and nation-state actor by selling a pseudo-spiritual beneficial health a pseudo-spiritual product that it claims will provide beneficial health and consciousness effects. In fact, witness statements now indicate that subsequent to the Gaia.com and Jirka Rysavy sale of such pseudo product, a corporate and or nation-state actor possessing or operating a satellite-based DEW energy weapons targets the consumers purchasing such Gaia pseudo products with satellite-based or land-based DEW energy weapons, causing them severe trauma and health damage. And we have those statements in our file. Gaia.com CEO Jirka Rysavy war crimes. Gaia.com's and Jirka Rysavy's DEW actions appear to give rise to war crimes committed by persons, corporations, and state action in violation of the Fourth Geneva Conventions, subjecting Gaia.com CEO Jirka Rysavy and any and all Gaia.com employees, contractors, agents, and other persons abating and aiding the targeting of multidimensional interested individual with DEW-directed energy weapons, such as Gaia.com contractor Regina Meredith, to arrest and legal prosecution under the statutes of the International Criminal Court, inter alia, as well as the criminal statutes of the United States of America, of the state of Colorado, and of the states within which such actions occurred, as well as the laws of other nation states and jurisdiction. U.S. government entity, war crimes against civilians under the Fourth Geneva Convention. You know, a corporation, if you're doubting this, a corporation in which we have a former producer, senior producer, such as Gaia TV producer Jay Weidner, openly admit in a May 2019 series of May 2019 videos that he produced a series and continued to produce a series of videos with Gaia.com contractees, Corey Good and David Wilcock, containing hoax materials, which are a criminal fraud violation of subscriber regulations in the state of Colorado, and maybe RICO racketeering violations. They're susceptible. They're a corporation that is susceptible of being a front for covert targeting by unlawful directed energy weapons used by malevolent war criminals employed by U.S. and private intelligence agencies directed at persons revealing stories or directed at innocent attendees. News Inside Out has already published forensic evidence demonstrating that U.S. Army sharpshooters were a key component of the shooter squad that carried out the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King under the color of unlawful black ops national security orders. It was the U.S. Army that murdered Dr. Martin Luther King. You have a vile nation state south of our 49th parallel here. The United States is a vile nation state that commits war crimes and crimes against humanity. and genocide at will as national policy and brainwashes its population. Foreign nation state. Moreover, one must consider the possibility that directed energy weapon targeting strikes are carried out under the authority of or using the property of a nation state foreign to the United States of America, making the DEW directed energy weapons attacks upon civilians, especially against a U.S. presidential candidate, was in fact a guest at Gaia.com studios in Boulder, Colorado. False flags acts such as the directed energy weapons targeting of civilians by a nation state have been carried out against the Republic of the United States of America, most notably in the case of 9/11, when the State of Israel committed the war crime of aggressive war under international law by aiding and abetting an armed attack upon the Republic of the United States carried out by a conspiracy within the executive branch in violation of Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution, causing over 3,000 civilian first responder and military deaths, and launching the Republic of the United States under an unlawful international proxy war on behalf of the Greater Israel Project of the Sanhedrin, Luciferian Sanhedrin, and allied political, financial, colonial, and central settler interests in Palestine. And I personally had communications with the Chief of Staff of the U.S. House of Representatives, Director of the House Judiciary Committee, to commence investigations of a special counsel in this regard. Corporations or organizations, if the directed energy weapons attack associated with any Gaia.com programs are carried out in concert with or using the infrastructure of another corporation, network of interlocking corporations or organizations, syndicate, shadow government, fraternity, secret society, religion, then such participating entity would be liable for war crimes against these DEW targeted civilians as outlined above. International Criminal Court. Under the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, national courts in each signing nation are in fact expected to take the lead in prosecuting war crimes under the ICC statute, the Geneva Conventions, and international humanitarian law in general. The 7 countries that voted against the ICC treaty are China, Iraq, Israel, Libya, Qatar, the United States, and Yemen. Following 60 ratifications, the Rome Statute entered into force on July 1st, 2002, and the International Criminal Court was formally established. Around 139 nations have signed the Rome Statute. 118 have ratified the document, meaning that they are willing to use the International Criminal Court in their nations. Why have some countries refused to sign and ratify the International Criminal Court statute? Answer: states such as the United States of America Corporation, the State of Israel, the People's Republic of China, the Russian Federation, do not want to be held accountable for the actions of their armed forces because they know that they will be found guilty of war crimes and hence legally accountable. Under the Rome Statute, war crimes can be prosecuted in the national courts of any of the 118 nation states that have ratified the Rome Statute and are willing to use the ICC in their states. Among the legal remedies specific DEW targeted multidimensional interested individuals can pursue is prosecution for war crimes against Gaia.com, its directors, officers, and other organizations and employees. A full list of the 118 nations. Interdimensional extraterrestrial and AI artificial intelligence perpetrator. This reporter has uncovered probable cause evidence that legal culpability for the criminal enterprise behind the directed energy weapon attacks against some, if not all, of the multidimensional interested targeted individuals may also include specific exophenotypes of interdimensional extraterrestrial and AI artificial intelligence perpetrators. For example, perhaps some of the key contractors of Gaia.com are also manipulative, gray ET, mind control, disinformation operatives. They've been taken over by, they work for the negative ETs, their minds do. And I refer to Anya Briggs, a UFO researcher, leading UFO ET researchers, mind control by manipulative Dow gray ETs at Johnsonville Centrifuge. One of the key persons who's been identified in this study as being an effect of the manipulation by subconscious manipulation by negative ETs in a very in-depth study by Anya Briggs, who's granddaughter of Professor Herbert W. Briggs, author of The Law of Nations, is none other than David Wilcock. References: the Geneva Conventions of 1949 and their additional protocols, Contact in the Desert, ESETI, 5D event, Conscious Life Expo, Mysterious Holistic Doctor Deaths Are on the Rise by Josh Hamilton, Gaia.com Board of Directors, Jirka Risavi, founder and chairman, Harmonic Convergence, International Criminal Court, ICC statute. Breaking news: Ola Demigod, probable cause evidence shows Jesse Jackson was key covert FBI operative responsible for April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King assassination. Jesse Jackson continued as post-King U.S. quote black leader, including as a 1984 to 88 Manchurian U.S. presidential candidate and 1991 to 97 U.S. senator from D.C. based on status as covert FBI asset at the Dr. King assassination. Part 2 on the Demigod reveals Freemason pyramid erected opposite Martin Luther King secret death site. Full details exposed of U.S. Army police sharpshooters, FBI operatives Jesse Jackson, Reverend Billy Kyle's in false flag, even as MSNBC uses Jesse Jackson as on-air commentator on 2016 campaign African American issues by Alfred Lambremont Webre. International Criminal Court, all the nations that have ratified the Rome Statute, Afghanistan, Albania, Andorra, Antigua and Barbuda, Argentina, Australia, Austria, Bangladesh, Barbados, Belgium, Belize, Benin, Bolivia, Bosnia, Botswana, Brazil, Bulgaria, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cambodia, Canada, Cape Verde, Central African Republic, Chad, Chile, Colombia, Comoros, Congo, Cook Island, Costa Rica, Croatia, Czech Republic, Democratic Republic of Congo, Denmark, Djibouti, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Estonia. We can just go on. Look at that. One can go to the courts of this nation and sue here and sue any entity for war crimes committed in the United States. recommended reading U.S. Chrononaut, explaining Mars jumper program, and calls out Intel PSYOP flooding exopolitics with stolen valor false claimants. I won't name names, but you can guess them. Police killing African Americans can sue U.S. police in national courts of 118 nations for genocide. And this is online, this article and the videos therein, and this constitutes documentation of the lawful and legal claims of newsinsideout.com, its co-hosts Patty Greer, Laura Eisenhower, and Alfred Lambremont Webre, over and against Gaia.com, its directors, officers, and responsible employees and contractees, including then Gaia TV producer Jay Weidner and contractees Corey Good and David Wilcock. Thank you.